Let me minimize this. It's over here. So hi everyone, my name is Samhar Johannes and I am a STEM reference and instruction librarian. My contact information is up on the slide and I'm here with my colleague Joanna. I'm gonna let Joanna introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Joanna Gadsby. I am the instruction coordinator as well as a reference and instruction librarian, and my email is here as well. Any questions that you have?
So for the agenda for today, we're gonna go over search query, filtering, searching in specific databases, passive searching, and then last, a walkthrough. Our goal is to spend around 15 to 20 minutes actually on the walkthrough portion so that you can actually see this content live and in action. So a search query. So a search query is a word or a phrase typed in a search engine to find the find information. In essence, it's the thing or the topic that you're typing in the search box. So we have here two examples. Here is an example of a pretty straightforward search query, which is example number 1, where you're searching for the search terms of Baltimore, lead pipes, and long-term impact. To me, this is a straightforward, simple search query. Something a little bit more complicated, though, is search query number 2. So this is where you type in the search box again, terms such as the word wild and farm and conflict and pesticide. But you also see here symbols like the asterisk. You'll see something N4. You'll see something where a question mark or something that's in a parenthesis. So we'll break down what this means in terms of how to build a simple search query and also how to build a slightly more complicated search query. So all of your databases, so we're going to talk about the databases that we have here through UMBC. All of them have a basic and also an advanced page. When you're starting off, it's pretty straightforward. Stick to the basic page, get a sense of how that particular database works, and get familiar with the interface and how it sort of uses or indexes terms. As you become more familiar with the database, switch over to the advanced page. That's pretty straightforward. The most important thing, at least to me, though, when I'm working with students, when I do my research consultation, is asking them what keywords are they searching. And so having as many keywords as possible relating to each of your search terms is extremely important because you don't know how that particular topic is indexed in all of your databases. So in essence, that means if I'm searching for the topic of heart attack, I don't know how the topic of heart attack is indexed within some of my databases. So if I go from Medline to Web of Science to Science Direct, I don't know how heart attack is indexed. It could be indexed as heart attack, or it may be indexed as cardiac arrest, or maybe chest pains. So in order to ensure that I am getting all of the citations relating to the topic of heart attack, I need to try as many synonyms for the topic of heart attack. Another example is, for instance, is mental health. I may think that mental health is the right keyword to search for when I'm searching on the topic of like the long-term impact of social media on young adults. So I'm specifically looking at their mental health. But again, I'm not sure how mental health is indexed. So I need to try out all these keywords, synonyms for mental health, such as mental health or psychological well-being or emotional health, etc., etc. Keyword searching. So this is where you place a phrase within quotes or parentheses telling that search engine that you want those terms together in all of your search results. So for instance, unless I place the term psychological well-being in quotes, if I do not put it in quotes, I'm telling the search engine that I'm okay with citations having the word psychological in one paragraph, well-being in a second paragraph, because I did not tell that search engine that I want those words together in all of my search results. And the way I do that is by placing them in quotes or parentheses. Doing this will not substantial, but will narrow your results because you're indicating that you only want a specific type of search results that have these words together in all of your search citations. So Boolean. So this is the one that most students are familiar with. It's when you use terms such as and, or not. So and means that you want the word before it and then you want the word after it to be in all of your search results. They don't have to be together, so they can be in separate paragraphs, but they do show up in all of your search results. Not means the word right after not. So right now I have here an example, psychological not well-being. So I'm saying that the word well-being, the word right after not, cannot be in any of my search results. And then when I use the example of or, I'm saying that the word before it or the word after it, one of those words has to show up in all of my search results. It doesn't matter which one, but one of them has to show up. Implied Boolean is very similar to Boolean. It uses the plus to represent and it uses the minus to represent not. And again, you'll see examples here. So the plus says and. So that means the word before it and the word after it have to be in every single search result. But when I use the minus, the word right after minus cannot show up in any of my search results. Proximity. So there are many different types of proximity that you can use in your search. And you're going to have to figure out which of your databases likes the different examples of proximity. But a lot of them will accept using the word near. So when you write near, you're saying that the word before it and after it, they have to be within 6 words or less of each other in all of your search results. Or you can actually specify and say N4 and 5. So for instance, if I write N4, I'm saying that the word before it and the word after it, they have to be within 4 words or less of each other in all of my search results. Doing this will substantially reduce your results, but they'll be more relevant. Wildcard. Wildcard substitutes a single character. And so there are ways to represent wildcard, which is through the question mark and the $sign. And so, for instance, if some of your search terms occasionally use a dash and you're about to go to your third database and you're not sure how that search term is indexed in that database, if it's indexed with, a dash or no dash, just use the wildcard. This just helps you do some trial, reduces, doing some trial and error. So again, well-being. You're not sure if that database has indexed the term well-being with an index, or excuse me, with a dash or no dash, just use a wildcard. Truncation is one of my favorites. So this is where you use the asterisk or the exclamation point. They mean the same thing. You're going to have to do trial and error to figure out what your database prefers. But what it means is that when you use it, it represents multiple characters. So if I use it at the end of the word infract, I'm telling the search engine that I'm willing to accept any variations, any ending to that word. So for example, I'm willing to accept terms such as infraction, infracting, infracts. Subject term or thesaurus. So many of your databases have something called the subject term or thesaurus, which are in some ways like the official definition of a search word and the controlled word. And so, for instance, if I'm searching for the topic of automobiles, I'm not sure how automobile is indexed. And so, how all of the citations for the topic of automobile are, will be brought up. I'm going to use the subject term, which is also referred to as the control term. And so, I'm going to find out the actual official way to search for the term automobile is actually car. And so if I search using the term car, I'm going to get all of the citations that relate to that topic because that is the official control term, the official index term. And so you'll get a more precise result. Another thing using the subject term is that it gives you like the big definition, and then it gives you a list of like smaller subject headings, smaller sort of like specific searches, like subcategories underneath that big term. And so you can say, actually, I'm not interested in automobile. I'm interested in green car automobile. And so you can actually narrow your search.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about filters and how they can significantly narrow your search and get you more precisely to the kind of sources that you're looking for. We can go to the next slide, Semhar. So I've pulled some examples from AOK OneSearch. Typically, you will see these filters on the left side of the database screen in the new EBSCO interface. They're right under the search box. So there are a lot of different ways to filter the information, and it's especially important to do so in a search engine like OneSearch, because it's bringing back so many results. You really want to filter it down so that you are getting the type of publications that you want. So in OneSearch, there are examples include you can limit by peer-reviewed journals, items that are online only, so you wouldn't need to order them or request them for anyone because they are available online. Publication date, material type gets really granular in OneSearch, so this is a good filter to use, particularly when you're looking for a specific type of publication. And we'll see during the walkthrough how this looks, but again, especially in OneSearch, the material type gets really specific, and you can choose multiple. Expand beyond USMAI is important to toggle in OneSearch because you need to opt into that. And what that is doing is allowing you to see citations for articles that we don't currently subscribe to, but we can get you through interlibrary loan. So you're going to want to be able to see that. That will remarkably expand your search. You see some others down here at the bottom. Again, we'll look a little more specifically at that during the walkthrough, but most of them are fairly straightforward. The next slide, please. Thank you. So that's OneSearch. And when you get into our specific subject databases that Semhar will show you, we'll talk about in a moment, you'll see a lot of different filters across these databases. These screenshots are from PsycInfo, and you can see they include things like the publisher, tests and measures, age group and population group, intended audience. Those are all great for those kinds of research studies. Personally, my favorite filter is methodology. So that gives you the opportunity to filter by specific types of study, whether it's quantitative, qualitative. You can also get more specific underneath those broad categories. Next slide. So the field limiters are a type of filter where you indicate where in the article you want this particular term or phrase to show up. And again, in something like OneSearch, I always recommend looking for your major concepts in the title because we know that most academic articles are very specific and they're going to probably mention the major topics of the article in the title. So particularly if you have a lot of results and you want to look for a way to really narrow quickly, but also make your results more relevant, looking for phrases in the title is a good way to do that. And this is a screenshot from OneSearch. In some of the other databases, you can get more specific, like title and abstract or subject terms. So that is a good way to indicate to the database where you want that term to show up. Okay, next slide.
Because it's going to be impossible for us to go through all of the databases that UMBC owns, what we've done instead is sort of narrowed it down to major vendors, and we're going to discuss their features. So a vendor is a company that provides sort of like the infrastructure for a specific database. So a vendor owns multiple databases. A vendor usually keeps the same-ish interface with all of its databases that it owns. So we're going to talk about the three major vendors that UMBC has access to or owns. It's EBSCO, ProQuest, and Gale. And so, for instance, EBSCO is the main vendor, and it owns the following databases. For example, Medline, CINAHL, Greenfile, Science, Reference Center. And so all of those databases that I just mentioned have the same-ish interface. And so where they differ though is sort of like the filtering options, the default settings. So what you can search with and what Joanna just talked about. So if you go to, for instance, EBSCO, you may be able to filter by material type, which means, for instance, you can search for databases by primary source, secondary source. You can search by articles that have been retracted. But when you go to another EBSCO database, you may not have that option. And so let's look at some of the differences or some of the similarities between these three major database vendors that we have access to through this handout. Okay. Can you guys let me know if you can see the handout? Can you see it, Joanna? Okay, great. So you'll see, like I said, three major vendors, EBSCO, ProQuest, Gale. And so the similarities and differences. Subject authority. And so this talks about, again, the standard subject terms for precise and relevant results. So like what we talked about, like the controlled word. What is the official definition for these particular terms? Some of these search options, wildcard, we just talked about what that meant in terms of how to, well, never mind. A thesaurus, the official definition. And then, synonyms, etc. Search mode, which talks about, for instance, if you want to do Boolean searching, if you want to look at the basic or the advanced page or do a combination. ProQuest allows you again to do searching by basic and advanced or a combination. It has the option to look at a thesaurus. It has the option to do various types of search queries, so truncation, Boolean, proximity, etc. And then Gale. Gale is a little bit more limiting in terms of it doesn't give you as much flexibility to do more advanced search query, but it does give you the option to do wildcard. It does give you the option to do proximity. These resources, these various vendors, all have a help page and all have sort of like a frequently asked questions section. So understanding sort of the rules and variations of these various vendors will allow you to sort of maximize your searching efforts and kind of get the best results and get more relevant results and hopefully not, spend a lot of time looking through fluff. We do have databases that are outside of these three major vendors that have their own sort of like rules and obviously their own interfaces. They include some of the following of WebEx, excuse me, Web of Science, JSTOR, ACMM, IEEE, Springer Nature, etc. But again, each of these databases have a help section or section, frequently asked question section. So passive searching is the type of searching where it allows you to keep up to date with information or the new literature in your field without having to do sort of direct and active searching every day. And so this is just a kind of like a great way to keep your search up to date in the background without having to go to each of these databases and do the search query, go through the various results every single day or however often you want to do it. Now, there are many different types of passive searching, but we're going to talk about three sort of in particular. And so RSS, which is something called really simple syndication. It's a way to keep up to date with your favorite websites, with your favorite academic publications, news sources, podcasts, etc., without needing to visit each of those places individually every single day looking for content. So you're going to have to use something called an RSS reader. So you're going to have to install it, and then you can keep up to date and you can sort of streamline the way that you're receiving content. An alert. So an alert is where you register with each of your various databases. So I can go to one of the EBSCO databases. So for instance, Medline, and I can, register and establish an account with my UMBC email address. And then once I've done that, I can establish an alert on a journal that they have access to. Or I can actually go to one of our e-journals and register again with my UMBC email address and establish an alert on that journal. So every time there's a new table of content, every time there's a new issue, I can have that table of content or just a notification that, a new publication has been submitted. And then last, save a search. So you can save a search query. So in order to do that, again, you have to register and establish an alert with each of these databases. And once you've done that, you can save, again, a search query. You can save a particular author or a particular keyword. And every time that that author publishes, you'll get a notification. You can establish an alert on a keyword. So for instance, you can say every month, if there's a citation that has my keyword, let me know. And that's, you'll get notification. Or you can, again, save it on your search query. And so you can save that search query. And so it could be the complicated one or simple one. And every time you can just have it refresh on a monthly basis. And then if there's new publications, new citations that match, you can have it sent to your email account. And again, you can run this however often you want. And so I do it with my favorite search terms every week. So I'll get notifications based on my search queries or my search terms on a weekly basis, some from some of my favorite databases or from some of my favorite journals. And so with that, we want to now transition to sort of allowing you guys to see what we just talked about in action live. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to transfer it over to my colleague.
Hi, I don't know if you can see me anymore. I think my video stopped working.
We cannot see you.
Okay, I am sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened, but the camera seems to not be working at the moment. So I promise you I'm still here, and I'm going to share my screen so that we can do a little demonstration of some of these different tools. Again, Samhar will be monitoring the chat. If you would like to ask any questions during this process, please feel free to either raise your hand or add something to the chat if you have a question. Okay, so we're going to start in OneSearch and just walk through some basic features. You've probably used this before. Just want a refresher for some of the things that we've talked about and maybe some of the features you weren't aware of. I prefer to head straight into the advanced search, so I'm going to use this link underneath the search box to get me straight to the advanced search. And as Semhar mentioned, we're thinking about putting together a query and what that might look like. So generally, when I'm thinking about sort of the main topics of a particular search, I'm thinking about who is being impacted, um, and then what's causing the impact, what is the relationship that I'm looking for, if that makes sense. So I'm going to demonstrate in a couple of different databases looking at the effects of AI on mental health in adolescents. So you can see some of my suggestions are coming up here already, but I just want to show you some of the differences that we can make in the search results with just a few changes. So I've added adolescent and mental health and AI to think about what are the effects of AI on the mental health of adolescents. So, not a very specific question, but hoping to start myself in a direction where I will start narrowing down and figuring out what I'm looking for. Okay, so I just cleared my cache so that this would work more efficiently, and I just need to do all the login steps. Here we go. Should be ready now. So signing in is really important when you're in OneSearch so that you can access all the features of this search interface, as well as see all of the results that would be available to you as a UMBC affiliate. So I usually keep an eye on my results number as I am going through the process of changing sort of my major search functions to just kind of keep an eye on, did I make a change that caused a huge drop in the number of results or increased? It's just helpful to sort of pay attention to that so you can think about what is being most effective. Okay, so 36,000. I'm going to go ahead and use some of the filters before I start adjusting the search terms at all. So I know I want peer-reviewed journals. And all of these filters in OneSearch also have this red checkbox on the right side, and that is to exclude. So you can include on the left, and if I want to exclude physical items, I only want online articles, I can do that, right? I can add that here. So I want to add peer-reviewed journals, let's say last 5-ish years. So let me refine that publication date. And so far I've set 2 filters here. Actually, I think it didn't capture my peer reviewed, and here's why. Because I need to lock in my filters, and it adjusted the publication date without accepting my other filter first. So that's something that's important to remember here in OneSearch as well, is that once you start adding the filters, you want to lock them in. Otherwise, you'll have to reset them every time you update your search. So let's see, peer review journals. Let's go to material type. And here's something that I mentioned earlier. Some of these get really granular, like not just articles, but review articles, newsletter, book chapter, conference proceedings. So you can check multiple, and that will pick up most of what you're looking at. But if I check off articles, that will also include some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and apply these 2 filters, peer-reviewed journal articles, 2020 to 2026. And I cut my results in half. So the next thing I'll do is indicate I want at least some of these terms to show up in the title, because again, 15, 16,000 results is too many to look at. Let me really see if I can increase the relevance while decreasing the results. So that was a really big jump from 15,000 to 34. That makes me a little nervous that we lost some things that are pretty important. So I do want to go back and adjust that. But as I'm looking here, I also want to just kind of cruise through and make sure that I am getting that relevance. So far, I'm seeing a few of my search terms show up in the article title, but they're also showing up in the journal title, the publication title. And that's something that is hard to tease out with one search when you say you want it in the title. So I'm going to scroll back up to my search terms, make some adjustments. Here, I do want to add not just AI, but artificial intelligence as a particular related term, or machine learning. Now, I have noticed in one search that not only is important, but capitalizing any connectors that you add to that search string. Let's see, I'm also going to truncate adolescent, up any variations in that ending. But what else could they be saying? Teenagers or youth or young adults. And again, I'm going to go back and put quotes around some of those phrases. And I think teen, I will probably truncate as well. Okay, let's see what kind of changes that makes, that particular update. All right, I've gone up a little bit, and I like a little bit more of what I'm seeing in the results as well. So this is helpful, and I might go through and again look at some of the journals that are coming back. I might look at the type of article and make some decisions there. But we are seeing some articles coming back here through OneSearch. Because I'm looking at mental health, I'm expecting to see primarily journals related to psychology. So we have the Journal of American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, Mental Health Weekly Digest. That makes sense to me. If I wanted to look a little further outside of psychology literature, I might actually change some of those search terms to gather things that were coming back from other fields, other disciplines. Okay, so that is a whirlwind tour of doing some searching in OneSearch. Additional filters that we could look at here, the subject filter can be helpful again for increasing that relevance, getting a little more precision there, where we can check off any of these subjects. These are like tags that are applied by catalogers to the article. So this is saying this article is definitely about this subject. So that can really increase precision in our searching. And then again, this is telling me what journals are coming back. I could choose to just get articles from a few of these journals that are from the results, and then language as well. So those are the filters there. As far as holding on to some of your sources and searches, as Samara was discussing, there is this save query that you can add to your favorites. So that means my search is going to be added to my favorites in OneSearch. I can turn on a notification for this query so that I get notified when other articles that match that query are added to the database. And I can find that where this push pin is up here. I can see both any articles that I've saved, saved searches, and my search history. All of that will be in the searches and the history will be in my favorites, as well as any article that I want to save as I'm searching. I can use that push pin to add it to this list. And then, you can see how this list might get pretty long and unwieldy. You can also do things like add labels to your particular favorite articles. And so then they're going to show up over here under labels, and you can click on the labels to pull up just those articles that have been added to your favorites under that particular label. Okay, any questions about that? So let's look at some specific databases and think about some of those quirks that Semhar was mentioning. When we go looking for a particular database, you can go to the search and find menu and use the database link. That will take you into the database search. And that particular search box is over here on the right. You can choose to look at particular subjects, types in terms of what kind of sources they have, as well as vendors. Semhar was talking about some of our major vendors. You'll see those names after the database name. So EBSCO, Gale, ProQuest, again, are the ones that you will see most often, but there are some other vendors, and then there are others that operate independently of that. If you know a particular database name, you can also just type it in, or you can type in a subject, and that will look for databases that either have that word in the title or the description. So I'm going to take us to Academic Search Ultimate, which isn't necessarily a database that folks think to look for, but it is one of our largest multidisciplinary databases. We tend to advise folks to add it to any list of databases that they're searching across because it doesn't cover any one subject in depth, but it has a lot of breadth, so it can be really helpful that way. So looking at, let's just look at that same search, the impact of AI on adolescent mental health. And you can see some differences already. This database is feeding me suggested terms, which can be very helpful. It also is good to remember that this is a database pulling these terms from a fixed list. So it's not thinking about context. It's not thinking about outdated or problematic language. So I always advise folks to just watch out for that. Make sure you're not accepting the terms without really looking at them, because sometimes they might not be relevant as well. But these look pretty good. If I add this string here, it's pretty similar to the one I added in OneSearch. And I am going to not just ask for it to look in the title, but title and abstract. So sort of doubling down on that a little bit. And again, here, if I add AI or artificial intelligence, I think, once I go a little further with my ORs, I get more suggestions, machine learning or algorithms or generative AI or generative artificial intelligence. This one's suggesting ChatGPT. So again, just thinking about which one of these would be helpful. I am going to accept this one that includes generative AI because I think that's more of what I'm looking for. And is a really good example of when you're looking for related terms that aren't necessarily synonyms. So mental health and mental illness, almost opposites, right? And what they mean, but they're getting at the same piece of health, mental illness, mental disorder, psychiatric illness is potentially all getting at the same area of research. But if we think back to Semhar's example, we might want to add in psychological well-being, mental well-being, things like that. But I am going to just put this one in. And again, let's try title and abstract for those field limiters. Okay. So again, at this point, I can probably comfortably look through this list. It's a much smaller, more manageable number, right? 178 as opposed to 36,000. I do find it's helpful to look through these subject databases and think about, what terms am I seeing? And that's why it's also helpful to get out of a particular subject database and look at something like Academic Search Ultimate just to get ideas for what terms you can be using, what keywords would be helpful. It's also looking across disciplines a little bit more. So Journal of Neonatal Surgery, we see that that's not specifically related to psychology or psychiatry. Filters in EBSCO databases are not on the left. We push the button at the top and it brings up actually on the right, this menu. So we see some similar things. Full text is similar to online only, publication date, peer reviewed. Databases, we've only got this one at the moment. I'm going to add another just to show you what that might look like. The source types, you see they're a little less specific in terms of the kind of article. We're looking at types of publication more. Those subject terms, again, increasing our precision a little bit could be good here. But knowing that not every article is going to have those subject terms applied uniformly. So, sometimes I go back and forth with that particular. So we also have publisher, language, geography that could be helpful to add. And the thing that I want to show you is when we add another database to the search. So within a vendor, so within EBSCO, within ProQuest, within Gale, you can combine other databases that we subscribe to through that vendor, which can be very helpful. And in this case, I want to show you what it looks like when you add some APA databases, PsycArticles and PsycInfo. I'm going to check both of those off. So now I've selected 3, and you can look through and see, are there others you would want to look at? For anything psychiatric, I always add Medline because that's where we're going to find psychiatric information. Okay, so just adding those databases with the same terms, I've doubled the number of results, but I do want to show you how the filters are going to look a little bit different. So what has happened is we've added some things like methodology, tests and measures, population that are specific to those APA databases. And so that's a nice feature because that's a change that EBSCO has just made. And you used to not be able to have any additional filters that were only specific to one database, but that has changed. And that's really nice because you can see, okay, I can pull out methodology, at least for the ones that are in PsycInfo. So those filters that are specific to a certain database, you can add them, but it will not necessarily apply to the ones that are not coming from that particular database, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I want to show you one more database specifically. I would love to be able to show you all of these in depth, and Samhar and I, as well as our colleagues, are always available for research appointments if you want to do something like that, in addition to looking at some of your other work. But I do want to show you Web of Science because it is outside of those major vendors, and it is a really good resource across disciplines because it has sciences, social sciences, and humanities. And it has a lot of new features such as this AI research assistant, which is a top, a lot of these smart search features. So to just show you basically a little bit about Web of Science, I'm going to go to the advanced search, and they have a few different ways for you to build your particular search string. So you can do this query builder, which is going to let you use some of their tools to build that query, or you can do this fielded search, which again, let's say AI mental health, and I am going to put mental health in quotes. The and is implied. So one of the most important features about Web of Science is their citation searching. So you can see some of their filters are unique to Web of Science. You can look for highly cited papers. I believe, I never remember what the hot means somehow. I think it's how new it is and how many times it's been cited. I think that's the calculation that makes it a hot paper. But you can see there are some other additional things like early access, review article, enriched cited references, etc. So their filters are a little different. You can look at the particular researchers that are coming back for this field. And then over here, when you look at the article, you'll see, here are the citations, the articles that have cited it, and here's the reference list. So it's nice to be able to get right into that. And that's something that Web of Science does really well. And something else you can do here is you can say, show me the articles that are coming back in these results that have the most citations, right? So, here's a highly cited hot paper. And we see, it's been cited 1,100 times in 2 years. So that particular calculation is what is giving it that little fire symbol there. So then you can get right into, again, those references that cited that particular work. So that's a really nice feature of Web of Science, is being able to sort your results list by those that have been cited the most, that are coming back in that particular search. Okay, we're running out of time. We definitely want to give you the opportunity to ask some questions, give you a break to process all of the things that we've been talking about. So I'm going to stop sharing. And please feel free to put questions in the chat or unmute or raise your hand, however you feel like doing that.
Hello, this is Christine. I had a question about like organizing all the sources, and like recommendations on tools. Like I use Paperpile and I try to add to Google Scholar also, but I know some you have to pay for and some you don't. But I just like, what have you seen as like the best tool to keep resources together to be able to like label them and search them in a way across the sources?
I have thoughts, but Sipar, do you want to go ahead?
So I usually use a citation a citation software manager, such as like Zotero and EndNote, to help me like manage my citations. And then I break it down if I'm like writing, before when I used to be like writing on larger papers, I would break it down by like sections. And so I would create a folder for each, it could be for each chapter or for each sort of like portion of your paper, if that makes sense. And so all of the citations that I'm going to use for like the introduction would be here. All the papers that I'm going to use for the literature review would be in this folder, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that helps. And like I said, here at UMBC, we promote two particular citation software, EndNote and Zotero. We teach sessions on them. You can contact your individual like subject librarian, and she'll be happy to work with you one-on-one to sort of get you familiar with it. But like that's how I like personally like sort of organize all of like the citations that I'm capturing, and like organize it and get it sort of set up easily so that when I have to write my paper, it's an easy transfer from the software to Microsoft Word because they have a built-in relationship. So I can do in-text citation. I can change the citation style to any citation style that's out there. So it all works seamlessly. And I'll switch it over to Joanna.
I also really like Zotero. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I like that you can use the browser a lot of different types of sources. So it's, including, OneSearch have an export function to easily move those sources into Zotero. So if you're, looking at articles, it's great for that. But if you're not within a database, Zotero is also really good for capturing websites, blogs, etc., online video sources. I just feel like it's more flexible in that way. And I like the way that you can share Zotero folders very easily with collaborators and research partners. Like Samhar said, you can group them. So I usually have a folder for a particular topic or research paper that I'm working on, and then I can share that with my collaborator or my research partner, so that they can also add to that. And there's also a nice plugin for Google Docs. So again, you can get those citations right from Zotero. So I'm definitely in the Zotero camp, but I wills. The other thing
Zotero, it's easier to work with, I think between
so.
the two. It just has it's so easy to capture the citation. It requires so little from the user that you can just go about doing your research.
And I find I usually use the favorite or add to folder feature in the database as I'm searching, just because it's kind of non-committal, right? I'll just add this to my favorites, I'll add this to my folder, and then I go back from there and decide which ones I'm going to keep and send to Zotero. But that's, that's my particular quirk. Do other folks have questions? Thank you so much for that one.
Thank you everyone for attending. If you guys don't have any questions, we'll be sending out a copy of the recording of the session and a copy of the slides tomorrow morning. Also, feel free to contact us if you have, more specific questions, or you're just getting started with your research and you just kind of want to have somebody sort of be there with you as you, start the early process of establishing the alerts, identifying the databases. You want somebody to review your search query, we're happy to do that. Joanna works a lot with the humanities and social science, or mostly social science and some humanities. And I work with the STEMs. And yeah, we're happy to assist you. And with that, I'm going to hit stop recording.
Commits are regular, to be honest. Here's the second one.
Hi,
Here's
Samar
41
and
commits.
Joanna. It was a good workshop.
Regular commits.
I have